Hey everyone, how are we this evening? Oh. I'm very sorry in advance. I've been back to back with clients today, and because I'm doing these, it's a bit difficult for me American clients who are half my clients, so I've had to finish early. But we're just kind of getting up to the 6 o'clock on the dot. Hey Pete. Hey Eric. Welcome on board. I've not seen you before. Hey Michael. Okay, so welcome everybody. For those who've not been here before, I'm here to answer your questions regarding music production, what's going on in the industry, all that kind of stuff. Just ask me anything that you want to know. And I've just been so busy with clients today that I've literally just finished, got a quick brew, and I've not planned anything for tonight. So come on, let's get these questions in. Evening, Jay. Nice of you to join us. Good evening, Kipper from America. Okay, so Michael says, hi Jason, I would love to learn more about your drum programming, how you create the jacking drums, which patterns to use, and how much variation, which sounds you are using. All the insights, please. Okay, so the way that, let me just show you. Okay, so the way I work is this. As you know, Michael, I make all my clients get their own sample pack together at the beginning, and that sample pack has got to be in the direction that they're going, so that every kick they would use, every hi-hat they would use, everything else. And this is mine here. Hey Adrian, thanks for joining us. And these are my hi-hats. So obviously house music, I've got a melodic one and I've got a garage one as well. But if you listen to the hi-hats, they're all what I would use in house tracks, but I choose them for the frequency and the quality of the sample. So depending on the mix, you know, the hi-hats can change, and I choose the hi-hats for the frequency. So I've got all different things. So that one's just for real high frequencies. And they're all good qualities. So I'll get the music together and I'll change the drums around it. Okay, so how do I get the jacking drums? So first of all, I choose my right sounds. Okay, and here's my claps. And I choose them all for different kind of tracks. Hey Marcus. So I've got all claps for all occasions. I've got very drum machine ones, got very slushy ones. And the same with the kicks, same with everything else. So I have all my drums, and I will generally use a kick with some 50 hertz in there. So the key of the kick is quite important. So if you listen to my kicks, house kicks, there's a lot of thud on the bottom end, so I can feel it. But also quite a bit of mid-range in the house tracks. Sometimes I'll use something a bit more distorted, sometimes I use like that. So obviously I use this quite a lot, but a sampler, it's just a sampler. So because I use Ableton, a lot, and this is why I use Ableton. They've got the drum rack, so quick listen. Oh, this track's all SP1200, but what I do is this. So I get a drum rack, and I'll put them in there, and I can easily swap them around. So the good thing about Ableton is if I swap this, like if I want to swap this kick, it'll open the folder where it was, or you can go to the folder, change the kick, and just easily go through it and find one that you like. And then choose the kick. Okay, so how do I get them so jacking? Well, the point of a drum kit is, I think, you've got three main parts to your drums. Okay, you've got your kick, which for me has got to have a bit of roundness and bottom end and weight so you feel it in your stomach in the club. Okay, and then you've got your clap, and your clap's got to have plenty of body, be a bit longer. Sometimes I have a pre-shifted clap, and everything leads into the clap like a drummer when it goes dung dung da dung dung da. That's how drummers play, right? And that's the groove, right? So I'll get a kick, I'll get a clap, and I like a hi-hat that's dead in the center with loads of body. So for example, one of my favorite closed hi-hats is something I nicked off my mate Richard Earnshaw. That you hear, it's got loads of bottom end. I nicked it off his track actually. It's just got a lot of slush. It's got a lot of body that in the track really cuts through. And then I'll get an open hat that's quite big. And the punch of those together with the kick, the clap, and the hi-hat, that's a driving force. And then everything else has got to work into the clap. So the snare, I won't pick a thin snare, and I'll balance them. And every time I add something, the kick and the clap have got to be driving. So the key to, besides having a balance of drums that sounds really good, is making sure that none of anything else in your track is overpowering them sounds. And that's just a volume thing. Remember, the number one tool you should be using is your volume, is your fader. Every time I get a mix, the first thing I do is turn all the reverb and delays off if it's quite messy, and then I pull all the faders down, gain stage it, and just put the kick in. And I never want to lose the kick in dance music, so I'm just bringing up the volume of everything else to go with the kick. I might put the kick and the clap in there, and then and the bass and the hat. So that's the driving force, and everything else I'll build around them because I want them to jack. I want them to drive them through. Now, to make them jack, that's about the swing that you use and the melody that you use. So, I mean, there's hundreds of different kind of melodies and grooves that you can do, but I always have a big clap. So let's have a listen to this track actually. So my drums are all around the clap. If you listen to it, everything's going into the clap. Now I've done all these in the SP1200, right? But they've got a swing on them, so probably me knowing me, it's either 63 or 68 in the Isla Instruments, or maybe a 58 actually for this. And then what I'll do is I will, get the kick in. So remember, the clap's always the loudest thing. Everything goes into the clap. You just got to imagine like a drummer, what that means is this, like a real drummer goes dun dun da. So look at my shoulders, right? So you go dun dun da dun dun da. Do you remember? See, my body moves. My body moves to the snare, to the da, right? And the reason why that so it's the same with our music. You know, we're dancing to it, and the groove going into the snare is what makes it jacking with the groove. And I always just like to feel. So the reason why my drums might be jacking is because I feel the kick, whether it be 50 hertz or whatever it might be. It might be garagey, it might be a bit more of a knocker, 100 and 200. But that kick comes through, and the clap always comes through as well for me. And then I'll just use a good swing and just mess around a little bit to make it my own. And nothing will overpower the kick or the snare. And that's in particular the bass. So let's have what I've forgotten for the bass here. Now this track's just work in progress, right? But listen, nothing's overpowering the kick, nothing, and the clap, so or the groove. So the only way I'm going to lose my groove is by adding stuff in too much into the track that's hiding it. And then what I'm doing, I'm side chaining everything to the kick. So that's also side chaining it to the clap. This track's just work in progress, but yeah, that's the way you get your drums, and choose sounds with plenty of body. Don't EQ the hell out of everything, or else you're going to be in trouble. Take out the acid, it's annoying me. So I've got the kick, I've got the hat, and I've got the clap central with the bass on the offbeat. And I don't have the bass on the kick, and if I do, I sidechain it, right? And then the pianos to the sides, and my hi-hats are up there. So I've just got this driving force in the middle that I really like. Yeah, the acid's just a plugin. So for the acid plugin there, I've used what have I used? Unused, let's have a look. Probably use Phytosin by D16, but I'm going to use the 303 for that. So I've got that there. Just got to get it working, which is time consuming. Oh, sorry, can I turn my mic up? Is that better? Is that better, everybody? Hey Roman, nice to see you on board. Hey Bobby, thanks for coming on. Ask me any questions that you want to know about music production or about the industry, and then we can go into it. So the question one now is how do you make your drums slam? And the key is choosing the right samples, getting a great groove that leads into the clap, but making sure the samples aren't too thin, they've got lots of body. And like I said to everybody, is I build my own sample pack of sounds I know I'm going to use. I buy them because they're good. I put them in the sample pack because they're good quality, and for the position in the mix, because I might need something that's higher because of the synths I've got in there, so it needs to be a high clap, or something that's lower. And I don't do that whilst I'm producing. I do it separately. So I'll go, like, for example, I've got my lead sounds here. You know, I've just used a load of these, so there's something in here for every track. They're all my sounds, but none of my sounds are ever overpowering my drums. Okay? And that's the key to it. You know, the jacking comes down to the elements you're putting in and the swing and the pattern that you do. So, yeah, I would generally use a drum rack if I'm doing it in the door, but because I've got the S2400, I do a lot of stuff in there. And I make sure there's nothing just there. Like I said to you, the piano's wide, the clap's there. And that's how I look at drums. And, you know, it's all about A, the swing, but B, the melody of the groove elements. You know, and for me, how it leads into the clap. Does that answer your question? Okay. Any tips, Pete Hoyle, any tips on using Decapitator? Do you use it on a group or single hits for best results? Do you ever use a low thump on a bass track or low percussion? I don't have any rules. Different saturators and different plugins work at different times. I like Decapitator. I'll try it and I'll use it, you know, on full and then on the mix. I might use it on the side. It's just easy to use. I'll just try all the buttons, see what each one sounds like, and if any of them buttons bring out the character that I think I'm looking for in that sound, then I'll go to that, and then I'll mess around with the parameters and just get the sound that I'm looking for. And a lot of the time I'll do it and use it in parallel, which is so depends what I'm trying to achieve. You know, am I just trying to get a bit of mid-range through in a whole loop? So I'll do a low cut and then a high cut to the frequencies I want to do, and I'll put that in a mix, so parallel. You've got these 5 buttons, and you've got these that control it, you know, and drive, obviously. Thump I do use every now and then, depending on this, obviously. And then I never use punish. So I'll just play around with them and see what's best. I kind of know my plugins now because I've learnt them. But what I would recommend to you is get it, put it on, you know, everything that you just try it on everything and try all the knobs. Try a bit of drive where you can hear it. Go through these, you know, listen to the tone, what you're trying to bring through. And, oh, that's nice there. And then if you think, you know, okay, I've got that, but it's creating some harmonics lower down, bring the mix down so it's parallel. EQ out the bit you don't want saturating, and then just introduce it in the mix. And obviously always level match. I don't use auto on this either because I don't think it sounds very good. It doesn't work, to be quite honest with you. And you know, just use your ears with steep when it comes to high cut and the low cut. Yeah, and that's it. Sometimes I will push things and always try parallel. I'll always try parallel. But I generally nowadays don't saturate whole groups. Maybe the drums. I'll use Black Box HG. I'll kind of do things more parallel a lot of the time. And I might do it on mid sides, which this doesn't have, but that's, yeah. I wish this did have mid sides actually. Has it got mid sides? Am I looking? No. So yeah, that's how I use everything. Everything. The way I use every plugin is I don't go to presets. I just learn it, you know, and see what all the different knobs do, and go, oh, well, that's, and just like this, I've got drive, so I'll push it, yeah. And then what brings out the best tone? Have a look at that. Does it sound good on the whole mix? What's it doing to the low frequencies? What's it doing to the mid frequencies? What's it doing to the high frequencies? What's it doing to the attack? What's it doing to the body? What's it doing to the tail of the sound? What's it doing to the tone of the sound? But more importantly, what is that saturation doing to everything else in the mix? Because remember, you're introducing harmonics, and them harmonics can quite easily be warming your track up, but even more easily muddying your track up. You remember, you're adding harmonics in. So yeah, Decapitator is great. I love it, and that's how I use it every single time. I'll do all that, and if it's not right, then I'll try and look for something else. Hey, Roman from Saxons. Bobby. Do you process the higher frequencies of your bass different to the bottom end? Yes. Yes, I will do. I mean, it depends what I'm trying to achieve. So, like, let's have a listen to this bass here. Okay, so this track's a piano track, okay, and the bottom of the piano is a bass, really. So if I take the bass out, so it depends what else is in the track. Everything depends what else is in the track, right? But this piano has got some low frequencies in it. So if I've got no bass in and the piano's in its own, I'll automate this bottom end, right? So I'll treat the bass as per what's in the track. So this track here, I just wanted a bass that was a lot powerful, that worked offbeat with the kick. But I've also got an M1 organ, which is bass. So what I'll do with that is I'll get that with the other bass. There's nothing coming through there. And in this case, I would probably think, right, okay, I'm going to keep the sub bass, which is the low bass, mono, just for this track, and I'll stereo spread the organ, yeah? And then I'll EQ the bottom of the organ to work with this. Now, let's just say I was using the M1 organ as a bass line. I might want the center of it mono and the top stereo spread. What I would generally do is, like what I've done in this track here, I would either separate the top and the bottom into two separate channels, or just use my ears and maybe stereo spread the top bit a little bit. It depends. Everything's about what you're trying to achieve. So you know, I might want on that a bit more saturation, a bit more kind of mid-range. I'll use my ears and I'll just go. And I'll use my ears on it. And, you know, I'm not treating the bottom end, but I'll check mono compatibility. I've already monoed that bass, but let's just say it wasn't mono. And I wanted to add a bit of stereo spread. would just do what I did yesterday and try all the different things for that. Now, I do have a plugin which is pretty special. And I've just bought the bundle actually. It's called Baselane. And what this does is a little bit different to everything else. So what you can do is you can add some kind of harmonics just to the sides. And what this plugin will do, and the great thing about it is it will keep it so it sounds, it's still got the signal in mono. And then it sounds wider. So what this section is doing here, it's adding harmonics to the side, even though there's no side, based upon what's in the middle. And it's tricking your ears into believing that there's bass on the side. So if I go... So yeah, so if I go and try that in mono... That was it before, because this is a mono bass. And we'll put delta on. And that's what it's added to it. But in mono, the volume doesn't go down, which with a lot of stereo spread things, it does. And I've not quite mastered this plugin yet. But I was after another plugin by these people that I keep seeing, which is like a really good analog EQ. And yeah, I watched the video for this and it's amazing. So yeah, that's something that I do. That's taking mono to stereo, but it depends what I'm trying to achieve. If I want a bit more width at 300-400, then yeah, I'll treat different frequencies differently. If I want, you know, I might have a bass line where one of the bottom end notes is a bit louder than everything else, so I'll put a multi-band compressor on, or I can do this in Pro Q3, just get the bottom end, and hopefully just hit the one note that is too loud or whatever. It depends what I'm trying to achieve. But yeah, I will treat different areas of things differently, but I'm very mindful of phasing and how it sounds in the mix. Does that answer your question? Just to finish off on that, I had an argument with, well, not an argument, I had a conversation with a guy who does my mastering, MKF mastering. He's unbelievable. He's analog, he gives things a bit of depth, he's brilliant. And he says my mixes are too mono. And he's kind of right. I'm a bit scared of stereo spreading things. And he did something there and it sounded great on the headphones, sounded brilliant, but on the speakers it just felt like it was lacking something in the center and the punch. And I just think that I want my kick and I want my body of my clap and my hat in the center, and I want the vocal there, because they're the key things for dance music that are driving it through all the way. But then with the bass, you know, if I've got the mid-range, now I'm open up to making it wide. And with this plugin, if I can make it perceived to be that wide, but it's still transferred to vinyl and it's still transferred to a mono system, then yeah, I'll try and make the bass wide as well now. Okay. Do you ever mix into a limiter or a compressor? And what are your thoughts on that? Bobby, it's whatever works for you. Personally, you know, a lot of my releases I have mixed and mastered. But for the sake of £60, you know, for a single track, or 120 for a stem mix, euros, I'd rather just get somebody who does that all day to do it. And I like things done in analog. So if you're on the last couple of days, I've done this track with Lisa Millett. It sounded great. I've signed it already. But I spoke to the master engineer and I just went, I just want it to be a bit wider. So he did it analog, and because it's got the kick and the bass and the numerous synths, you just get a bit more depth. And I sent it to him. Now, I don't want to compress that, and I don't want to limit it, because I will generally want a master engineer to do that for me, and they will use a different limiter to me. So there's no need for doing it. But because of gain stage, I don't clip. Now, if I was mixing for loudness and I was working on a dubstep record, as I have a couple of times, I might want to leave the master engineer a few dB of headroom. So put a limiter on there, like the Ozone, just to listen to what it sounds like when it's going into it. But in that case, what I've done already is mix for loudness and reduce the crest factor on every single sound and every single part of the chain, all the different buses, before it gets to the master bus, right? And what I want to know is, when the sounds hit the limiter, what's the distortion going to sound like? Or have I got to a point, you know, where everything's overpowering, or do I want the kick? You know, with dubstep, I want the kick to come through all the time. So the more stuff I add into the track on top of the kick, the closer I'm going to get to a distortion. So maybe I want to see if there's 1 dB of limiting with all the effects I put on there. What does that sound like with 1 dB of limiting? But I will never mix into a limiter, because there's two jobs that I think are better for other people. One is a master engineer, because I've listened to the track a million times and it's good to get a second pair of ears. And vocals, recording vocals. These people do this every single day and that's all they do. And their ears are just tuned much, much better. And it's the same when I'm mixing for other people. I don't understand why I would want to mix into a limiter, because I probably won't be doing the mastering. But if I do the mastering, I can just add it on at the end. So no, I don't mix into a limiter. Good evening, Pad. Okay. Any more questions, anyone? Okay, so this is a track I'm working on at the moment. Obviously, I've done it all in the S2400, and I did the bass in the Korg, and then I recorded it from the Moog, and then I've put it into the S2400 and brought it back in. And what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to get a bit of energy, which is just really pumping. So it doesn't sound anything like the track, but I really love Running by D-Tron. I love the kick drum. I love the width of the pianos, and I've just been trying to do that. So something I recommend to everyone is this. It's just using this plugin all the time. And we'll do frequency and character recognition. So what's the difference between mine and this? So they'll go, oh right, like, yeah, my hi-hats are really low. I never thought they were low before. Actually, it's arguable. Yeah. And then I might go, okay, the hats need turning up. So let's turn the open hat up. So I can see that I need a bit more attention just by A/B in the track and using metric A/B with all these different frequencies, that my mid-range and my hi-hats are lacking a little bit in energy compared to that track. Now, don't forget, this track's been mastered, you know, and all I've done is put this in, but I might look at that and go, okay, how can I fix that? Let me just make sure that's turned off. See, my mix is tilted, so I need to look at the mix depending on the references, but I won't just use one track, so I'll use a couple. So I can see I need a bit more thump on the bottom end of my track, and I'll go into it and I'll work at it, add a bit of something, a bit more. Notice the clap's a bit thin, so I might put a snare under that or something else. And yeah, and it's my kind of track. I'm just trying to show you how, if you're learning that metric A/B is your best friend. I don't just use it tracking. I especially with my clients, let's listen to the frequencies. Let's listen. Okay, we're lacking it. We know the energy that's there, and straight away I've just tilted the mix differently. Where did I come up with the idea for this track? Just jamming. I knew I wanted to do something with acid because I've got a 303 over there, the Behringer one, and I want to make a track with it. So I just did something basic, and then yeah, I just something a bit like Cassimi or D-Trony or something like that. Just old school housey. That's where the idea come from, Marcus. I always get, Bobby says, I always get put off when starting an initial idea when I obey it with another track, and it just sounds terrible compared. Mixing takes time to learn how to do it, Bobby. That's why I do the one-to-one mentorships. The first thing you've got to learn about mixing, but I tell all my clients before compression, EQ or arranging, is frequency recognition and character recognition, right? And you've got to ask yourself these questions all the time. And when I was listening to them, I could see when I went through the different frequencies on the metric AB, I'm listening to the differences, right, of the frequencies and the energy, right, and tuning into it. And it just takes time to do it. But you've got to everything you do, you've got to understand what you're doing to every frequency in that sound that you're affecting, and everything else in the mix. Just like I explained with saturation. Just tune into one thing at a time. So like, go right. Is my kick the same as theirs? Right? Is it as fat as theirs? You might say yes, no. One key factor to that might be the pitch of it. So if yours is a higher note, if yours is a B, and theirs is a G, lower down, they're gonna have more of that thump, more of that 50 hertz that really wallops you. Do you know what I mean? And you've got to learn the frequencies from everything that you do. You know, one thing that I do on everybody is go, right, okay, let's get an EQ. And we go, we listen for all the different, listen to all the different frequencies in each sound and learn when the character is, okay? And what you're doing by that is actually 50 hertz. And then you remember, 50 hertz was really good. And then you might have a kick with 70 hertz as the fundamental, and you go, well, it's not got as much energy that. So you've got to tune into each individual sound, you know, as a whole to go, is that the right level? And as I keep saying, the most important thing besides sample choice is your levels. You know, your faders are your number one tool that you go to. Do I ever use a sidechain with span to compare frequencies? I've been watching a Streaky Master video. He uses the AB plugin. Looks ace. I don't use Voxengo span, and I don't want to copy some. Don't do that. Don't copy. Don't tune in too much to somebody else's track and go, oh, mine isn't the same, right? Because it's never going to be the same. Like I said to you, right, let's just get a kick here, right? Let's just say, I really like this kick. Right? This is the kick on the track, right? But then I go to another track. And I prefer that kick, right? That's a sample choice. You know, every choice you make, right, has got to be the best choice that you can use. You can't get a kick in A to sound like a kick in G because you're boosting something that isn't there. You need the fundamental to be in G to get that weight. And vice versa, if you've got a kick up here, you're not going to get that body in it, you know? You need a separate bottom end to it. It's too low. My bottom of my kick will generally be in F to G. Because that's where that weight is there. If I'm doing garage, it could be a lot higher. Good evening, Aaron. But I don't compare frequencies because if you're comparing to a track and it's in a different key, it's going to be different. So the frequency is going to be different. And that's the problem. Now, if you compare it to a track in the same key, then yes, maybe. But what I would do is you know, if you're wondering why, try and get the key of the track and see where the fundamental note is. Because if you've got a track and it's got no bass in it, and you're referencing a track that's got loads of bass in it, yours might be in C. Do you know what I mean? Right? So the bass is too high, right? There's the fundamentals are going to be higher up. So you're not going to feel the bass as much. Whereas if your track's in G or A, you're going to feel it. Now, if I've got a track in C and I've got a bass in C, you know, I'll go on the keyboard, I'll go, right, C. And then I've got the third, which is D sharp. And then I've got the fifth, which is G. So then I'll use G because it's part of the chord. And what'll happen is I'll have a kick, but it'll have a bit more length. And what'll happen is all that bass in the kick will work with the bass further up. And I might have a longer kick because that might give me all that low end that I'm looking for. But a lot of garage tracks don't do that. A lot of garage tracks don't have a lot of bass in the kick. The bass comes from the sub and everything else, and that's okay because the kick still hits you from a different frequency. You know, it's like R&B. R&B a lot of the time, the kick's got a bit of bass in, but really the bass comes from the sub frequencies are coming from like the 808, which is where the low frequencies are, not the kick. Every genre is different. But I like a bit of weight in my kick, so I don't compare. What I do is I will listen to it and go, why is mine not that? And I will be able to identify a frequency issue, but because it's in a different key, or I've chosen the wrong kick. But I always choose a kick that works with my track in key. Not necessarily the kick. I might have two parts of the kick. I might have a top and a bottom. I might use kick or something else, or just get a sample. Get the main character out of that kick if I like that. Chop off the bottom end, put the bottom end in with something else. I ask you, should the kick be in the key of the track, or can it be a third or fifth of scale? I've just answered that. It can be in a third of a fifth. Now, if you're doing something like melodic techno or Afro house and you're using a big kick with a long kick, there's a lot of notage in there that you can hear. So we've got dung, ka-dung, dung, dung, ka-dung, dung. You know, that dung, ka-ding, ding, ka-dung, dung, ding. You know, the note's important. But if you're using something that's very like a garage kick, that's very distorted and mid-range and short, and you don't really hear the pitch of it, it kind of doesn't matter. So for me, the pitch of the kick is more important when it's a lower note. And I will always, it will feel better and it will see better if it's in key with the track. But again, it's all preference. There's no rule for anything there. Which tracks do you use for references in house music? I know Riva Star is in the list. Do you have some all-time tracks which are superbly mixed in house music? Right, so recently I've been using Kasim and the speech. I like that mix on that. I like the punch of that. And I like D-Tron. It's more my sound. But, you know, every mix is different. It depends on the sounds that are in the track. What I'll do, I'll try and get the track together. I'll usually have about 10 references which are in my DJ set. And what I'm trying to do is going, does my track go into my next track? Right? Sorry. Does my track, when I play it after this track, does it come down in energy? And metric AB helps me with that. So I'll ask myself, and then I'll do my frequency recognition. Okay, so what's the difference here? A, B in it. Okay, well, he's got this mid-range that really rips through, you know, and he's got this big round kick. Okay, well, I'll try and change it to see I'll just try and get the energy that works the same. I won't try and copy it. And that's, when it comes to referencing my main mixes, I'm referencing because I want to see, is this going to kill the energy on the dance floor going in after it? Based upon what I'm playing. So it'll be a different track if it's a warm-up track, and it'll be a different track if it's a real peak time slammer. But yeah, I like a lot of these tracks. You know, I love the kicking running, I love the mixing this, but again, the mix is down to everything that they put in. But the guy who masters mine, he mastered this as well because he does Jackie's. And he knows how he wants his music to sound. But yeah, I like running, but running sounds so big because he's got a low kick, which is a bit 808, and he's not got anything in the way of it, you know. And he's got his pianos at the sides, got his hats up there, and he's got his piano there, you know. And there's nothing else in the place of it. It's just he's chosen great samples. It sounds dead analog. And yeah, so that's why I use references. Because if I've listened to my own mix for ages and ages and ages, I'll listen, I go, oh, there's not enough top. I'll have 4 mixes and I'll A/B it, and I go, oh, mine's not got a top end. Now, talking about top end, I'm always mindful that when it gets mastered, it can generally be a bit brighter. So I always turn my tops down a bit to the references if I'm getting mastered. So yeah, that's why I use referencing for. And you always be mindful that the reference has been mastered. Should the kick be in the key of the track? Right, okay, now blah blah blah. Yes, 9. Like I said, there's no rules. It's what sounds best in your track and what you think. You know, that's it. Like I like everything in this track, but there's something missing in the mid-range. I think it's around the clap area. Sorry. In fact, the piano, it's probably the piano. So I forgot the piano. Yeah, I'll probably put another snare under the clap. Like I said, this is work in progress. 1, 2, 3, Dom D. I always use MIDI. And the reason why I always use MIDI is this, okay? Is at the beginning of a track, you might get a kick and a clap and a hi-hat, right? And the way I look at my tracks is everything's a lead. So the most important lead first, and then they go down, right? But what might happen is, like this organ bass and the bottom of this piano might hide the key frequencies of that kick, right? And the acid and this high moog might really hide the body of my hi-hats and my clap. So at the end of every track I do, I will generally swap the kick out and see if I can get a better kick to go with the track, because the key's the most important part of the track. And I will generally mess around with the hi-hats as well. So instead of turning things up all the time, I'll try and find something that fits the mix better, that complements the mix by cutting through, because I don't want to keep just turning things up, because that energy is going to go into the limiter and mean I'm not going to be able to get it as loud. Bobby, so at what point in the creation of the initial idea would you start to use effects like EQ and compression? Is it possible not to use any EQ or compression with perfect sound selection? Yes, Bobby, it is. It totally is. But so I choose my sounds for the position in the mix. So I'll always get the lead first. So in this one, I'd probably got the piano, right? And I would just maybe take out the bottom end, you know, just get it about right, okay? And that's all I'll do, yeah? Top and tail it. Just like I'm working on a sampler or something like that. I've only got top and tail, right? Same with the acid. But I would have chosen that acid so it wasn't in the same position as the piano, so it was a little bit higher in frequency, okay? And then for the next lead and the next lead and the bass, okay? And then I'll add the clap, and then, well, I already have a clap and hearts in there, but then I'll get everything ready, and I'll get to the point where I go, right, okay, it's a bit muddy this, or, you know, that piano needs tightening up, or the bass needs doing something. And then I will go in and decide, do I need compression, or do we need saturation, or do we need something like that? Now, if one of my clients coming to me, 90% of the people I work with don't have the fundamentals right. They can finish a track, but they don't have the fundamentals. So we'll go back to them. So what we teach you how to listen, yeah, and how to feel, which is important, and frequency recognition and character recognition, and how to do that on the sound you're working on and everything else. And then we go into the plugins. And what I do is I tell them to EQ. We do EQ 1 week, do EQ on everything, right? Just play around with it and see what we do. They teach them compression, and they have to compress everything, trying the art method, and because what you're doing is you're just practicing every time. And then saturation, and then clipping. And what you do is you just keep doing it on every sound all the time. You learn what each of those things sound like and what they do. Now, the key goal is doing what is doing it in the mix with everything else in, not in isolation. So the EQing, I'm just listening for frequencies I don't really want. In the beginning, I'll get it in the mix, then I'll do stuff in isolation. So if I want to boost in the piano, or I feel it's like not cutting through in a certain area, I might get the Spectre and just give it a bit of a boost. Need a bit more body in the 300 mark. Or, you know, if I compress it, if I don't know if it needs compressor, I might get the compressor on in the mix. I like this. I love this DBX. I mean, I never usually use it on the piano, but I put it on by mistake, and I just tried it, and it just, the presence in the sides and the piano definition is really good. Listen to it. Just gives it a bit more attack on the piano, what I really like in the mids. So I'll get the sounds in, sample choices, everything, and then I'll go back in and do what works in the mix with everything else. That's what I'm trying to achieve. I'm trying to get the mix to work together. I agree, 9. They are totally. But let's say you get a sound and it just needs a bit of compression because it's a sample and a couple of things are popping out too much. I might do that then. It depends what you're using compression for. Depends what you're trying to achieve. Some things might need, you put it in the mix and it definitely needs that straight away. So yeah, I will always just think to myself, you know, what am I trying to achieve? Is it affecting everything else in the mix? Some things will just pop out, like there might be a bass note in somebody's track I'm mixing. So instead of chopping up the bass, I might just try and put a multiband on straight away, just on that one note, to turn that one note down. Yeah. Any more questions, anybody? Thanks, Roman, for joining us. Jay Mark says, Jay, I know your discography speaks for itself, but do you have a specific label in mind when making a track? I used to, and it was the biggest mistake I ever made. So when I first started making house music, I talked about yesterday, I just made music because I just loved that music. Now what I had to do a bit ago, because I'm kind of coming out of retirement DJing a little bit, well, a lot, was go, right, I need to make records for my sets. So back in the day, I was making records for Subliminal and Defected. It was, oh, I want to be on there and thinking, what does Eric want? What does Simon want? And trying to get to them. But really, I was missing the point. You know, I need to make tracks for me. So every track I make now is something that I would play in my set and has got energy. And that's how I think. And in my in Metric AB, I'll have all the other records from my set. And that's it. And I'll just go, does it work in that set? You know, and some tracks do and some tracks don't. I was very lost for a little time. when house music disappeared, it all went tech house and electro, and I had to make music for other people. So no, I don't. It's definitely not what I do. And the other thing is this, is nowadays it's not about like it was in the old days. In the old days, you wanted to get on certain labels. If you're on Subliminal, you were traveling around the world. If you're on Defected, you were traveling around the world. Nowadays, people are buying people are buying into you personally. The labels have got less power. It's about you and your following. They'll come to you if you like. If I got, let's just say, and I can't do this, and I build up 10,000 fans, a lot of people like me, and they start sharing my tracks. The labels that wouldn't sign a record would come into me, because now it's about numbers. So now I make music that I love, that I would DJ, yeah, which I think other people will play because I'm mixing it with tracks in the set, and I'll give it to the labels. And I've got my top 5 labels. It was Defected. I'm not sure. Yeah, Defected, because obviously the whole thing. Glitterbox, New Groove. In fact, I prefer New Groove at the moment. Jackie's is possibly up there. Yeah, Jackie's is possibly number 1 actually. Groove Culture's great for more warm stuff. Sulfuric's just legendary. And but I don't make records for them. I just make records for me now and my DJ set. And they just happen to be like Riva Starry or Housey or everything. I do set from warm up to main. So that's how I make my records, in mind for something that I play. Any more questions before we go, everybody? Back tomorrow. I will see you then. I've got my stepson in tomorrow, making a garage track, so I'm looking forward to that. I love making garage. Everybody, thank you for turning up. You sure there's a lot of people watching and have not said hello? Sure you don't want to join us, ask us any questions? Anything to do with music production or the house music scene? Okay, we're back most nights in January. I will see you all soon. Thank you for joining in. Thank you for taking the time. I made a video today of the track I've got coming out with Rona Ray, which is like the Todd Terry one. If you've not watched that, go onto my channel, watch the Todd Terry one. And I recorded the whole thing over 3 hours. I've gone to it and the audio hasn't recorded, so I'm having to redo that again. But I'm going to have some more videos for you. I'm going to put loads more videos out. No, thank you all for taking part, and I'll see you soon.